everyone. My name is Erica Fox, and I am CCBC's Career Center Facilitator and Evening Counselor. And this is my presentation on workplace skills and professionalism, what you need to know and the skills you need to build. Typically, I go into the classroom to give this presentation to all of our Titan Transition students and all of our students that are in the College Success Strategies course. So this is my first time recording myself giving this presentation, so please bear with me if there's some bumps along the way. Part of my job is to work with a lot of different employers in the area and to do a lot of research about what makes a good employee and what makes a person have the set of workplace skills that are desirable by employers. So I'm going to talk a lot about that, and I'm also going to tie in those skills into different things that you are learning in the classroom throughout all of your courses that you're taking at CCBC. And I usually always mention as well that this presentation is for people no matter where you are in your career, whether you're just starting out or whether you haven't even decided what you want your career to be yet. If you're changing careers, these types of skills and this information that I'm going to talk about is valuable to anybody no matter where you're at on your career path. So what I want to cover today is it's a lot of information, but I'm always available in the Career Services Center for any questions and for any, feedback that you have for me about this presentation. Basically, workplace skills, there's a lot of different skills that can be called workplace skills. I've kind of gotten down to the bare bones here of what workplace skills are, and a lot of times this seems like common sense to people, but you would be amazed at what employers tell me and about how some of these skills are lacking in a lot of their new employees, and even in some of their employees that have been working for them for many years. So these are just some skills that you need to know, and as I'm going through this, it's important to think about yourself and think about, maybe I need to work on that, or I'm strong in that area. Knowing yourself and having that level of self-awareness is extremely important when we're talking about these workplace skills, because you're going to be asked about these workplace skills in your interview. You're going to want to highlight different skills that you have on your resume and in your cover letter. So I just want you guys to keep that in mind as I'm going through this. So we have your basic skills, of course. You need to have a pleasant and positive attitude. You need to be able to communicate effectively on paper and verbally and through email and over the phone. You also need to have a willingness to work and learn. And that willingness really is the key there, because you aren't going to be expected to know everything about your job the first day or even the first year, the first 5 years if you are working anywhere. But you have to be open and positive about being exposed to new tasks that you have to learn and to go with the flow and to deal with changes in the workplace with a positive attitude. You also need to have certain types of social skills. We're not talking about social skills that you use when you're with your friends or your family, but these are also types of communication skills that you need to have on the workplace as well. You need to have some boundaries put up so that, when you go to work, you don't bring your personal life into work, and vice versa too. So when you leave work, you don't take your work home. So boundaries is an important aspect of the social skills. You want to make sure that, if you are close with your coworkers, that you still remain professional with your coworkers and with your supervisors or anybody that you're working with. So you never want to be too personal or too friendly. You want to make sure that you are still carrying yourself with a professional attitude. You, of course, need to have your thinking skills. You have to be able to solve problems and make decisions. This is where critical thinking is key. You will be asked a lot of questions in your interview that are trying to get at your critical thinking abilities and how you come to make decisions when faced with a problem or a task that you have to complete. That's why in a lot of your coursework that you're doing now, you will have critical thinking exercises and projects that you have to complete, because this is something that a lot of people lack, and the critical thinking skill set is just so valuable in the workplace, and that's what a lot of employers are looking for in a successful candidate or in somebody that they're planning on hiring. Employers expect you to have some personal management skills as well. One of the main ones there is that you need to be self-motivated. You need to be able to come into work every day, think about, okay, what do I have to accomplish today, and maybe make a to-do list or have one already ready for that day. You need to know how to get what you need to get done in the time-appropriate manner and in a way that you're still making positive progress throughout everything that you have to do. If you're the type of person who kind of tends to lose motivation midway through the day, or there's certain times in the year where you suffer from a lack of motivation, that's okay. You're not expected to be a machine, but you need to know how to kind of pick yourself back up and to kind of refocus and get yourself motivated again to get back on task. Also, you're going to need to be dependable. You're going to need to be on time, and you're going to have to be focused on your job. So if you already know that you're always late or you have a hard time being somewhere on time, then you're going to have to make accommodations for that, and you're going to have to figure out how are you going to get to work on time, because that can be a major problem for a lot of people because it gives the impression that you are not dependable and you are not focused on your work or on your job. Nobody wants to work with anybody who is not dependable. Think about that. You want to be able to show up to work and to be present. You want other people to view you as somebody who they can count on to get something done. So that is where being able to prove to an employer that you are dependable by being on time and by being focused is an excellent way to kind of project that professional attitude that you are able to motivate yourself, you're able to show up, be present, do the job right, and be depended on by your supervisor, boss, coworkers, and clients even. Employers are going to want to know how you are able to manage stress. They will ask you interview questions to try to get you to talk about this in the interview. So this is really important too, to know how you manage stress. Are you the type of person when faced with a lot of stress, do you shut down, and are you unable to focus when you're super stressed out, or do you focus even more when you're super stressed out just to be able to get through it and to check this off my to-do list? I want this project to be done, so I'm going to sit here and focus myself and get it done. So where are you at on that spectrum? Are you the type of person that needs to take a lot of breaks during the day, like maybe a 5-minute break every hour just to kind of get the blood flowing and stand up, stretch? Do you need to kind of practice some even more heavily involved stress management methods to kind of refocus yourself? Are you into meditation? Are you into a lot of exercise? Do you have to listen to music periodically throughout the day to kind of refocus yourself? What are the tools that you're going to use to help you manage that stress? Because you will be expected to manage stress, and there's not one single job out there that is low stress. You're always going to encounter some level of stress in the workplace. Employers are also going to want to see how kind of you maintain professional boundaries. And this kind of goes back to the social skill topic that I mentioned previously. And a lot of this is kind of, how do I put this? A lot of this involves the culture of where you're working. So is the place that you're going to work or the place that you're trying to work, is it a very open environment? Do people not really have separate offices? Does your boss have an open door policy where you can just walk into their office at any point in time and talk to them or bring up a concern or a question? Or is your supervisor or boss the type of person where you have to schedule FaceTime with? Do you have to go through a secretary to set up a meeting to talk to your supervisor? So how accessible are your coworkers? How accessible are your supervisors and bosses, or how is that structure set up? Because you will be expected to fall in line with the culture of that workplace. So if you're the type of person who prefers to work more independently and who likes boundaries and who, if you would prefer to have a separate office or prefer a certain type of culture environment, then that's going to be important when you're doing your job search, because you're going to want to make sure that you find a job that is a good fit for you. So the professional boundary thing, it's kind of convoluted, as you can tell, and so there's a lot to it. You also want to make sure that you have the types of professional boundaries boundaries that you're comfortable with. So if you're a very private person, you might be a very private person on the job. If you're a very open person, you might be a very open person on the job. So you need to kind of figure that out for yourself. Do you want your coworkers to know a lot about your personal life, or would you prefer to keep that information private? If somebody asks you about something personal, are you comfortable answering that question? So you need to know where you're at there, and so if you want to project yourself as a highly professional person, then you might want to think about how to put those boundaries up and maybe just keep your work life and how you interact with people in the workplace about work, and then keep the personal stuff to the side or in the back of your head so that you can maintain your comfort level while on the job. So that's something just to think about. An employer is also going to expect you to be organized, and not everybody has the knack for being organized. I suffer from a lack of organization, so I'm constantly trying to make sure that I actually have to schedule time in my day to reorganize myself, whether that's redoing my planner or my to-do list for the week, going through paperwork, going through my email. I have to actively work on being organized every single day. Other people, it becomes easy to them. But regardless of where your strengths and weaknesses are with organization, you're going to have to be organized somehow, some way. So there are tons and tons of tips and strategies that you've learned in this class or you will learn. There's tons of internet resources out there on how to get and stay organized, because it's not unusual for you to be asked in an interview, how do you keep yourself organized? How do you keep yourself on task? How do you keep yourself motivated to get the job done? That's a very typical interview question right there. Interpersonal skills are very important as well. Employers are going to expect you to have them. And interpersonal skills can be defined as a lot of different things, but it's basically being able to communicate and work as part of a team, and to do that in a successful way. This is why, in college you will have to do group projects, and you'll have to do group work, and you'll have to interact with your classmates. This is trying to show you the types of skills that you're going to have to utilize to be a successful part of a team. And you might notice when you're doing this group work that some people naturally kind of emerge in the group as a leader, or some people naturally emerge as a follower, where they say, you know what, I'll just do whatever you guys want me to do. I'm flexible, just tell me what to do. Or are you the type of person that kind of is the mediator, where you like to be in the middle? So you're flexible, but sometimes you can motivate others like the leader, and sometimes you just follow directions and do what you're told. But your role as the mediator is often trying to get everybody to get along and to stay on task, and to kind of be that middle person between the followers and the leaders. So where do you fall in that spectrum? If you know you're a natural leader, that's fine. If you know that you're a natural follower, that's fine too. But how do you use that to your advantage? And how do you use those skills to get the job done? It's very important to know that about yourself. Having workplace skills can boost your productivity and your chances for employment. Developing these workplace skills takes time and practice. Nobody is born with this set of skills, with excellent workplace skills and excellent interpersonal skills and excellent communication skills. This stuff takes time, and it takes a lot of practice. So don't worry if you're struggling in these areas. Don't worry too much if you need to work on your time management or your organizational skills. That's quite all right, as long as you know that you need to work on that and you take active steps to build up those skills. Then you're on your way. You are on your way to being a very, very highly valuable employee. Employers are looking for people who know how to carry themselves and know how to work regardless of the specific tasks involved with the job. And of course, employers are going to expect that you perhaps have a certain level of education, taken certain classes, or had certain training. But even some employers, if you show up to work on time and you show up with a positive attitude, you can pretty much learn how to do almost anything. So they might train you. You might have to go through a mandatory training when you start working. So it's okay to not know everything, like I mentioned before. So you just really need to know how to carry yourself and know how to do work any type of work, and that usually takes just the how to be motivated, how to stay focused, and how to critically think your way through a problem that you might be faced with. You want to be able to identify your strengths and your weaknesses. One way to do this is to take online assessments to help you figure out your abilities, your strengths, your skills, your values, your personality. Because you need to be able to find out what you're good at and be able to communicate your strengths to others. Communicating your strengths to others is basically what the interview is all about. It is the key component to creating a resume. You need to know what you're good at, so you can put it on paper or verbally talk about it to somebody who might hire you. In this course, you've taken the Keirsey personality sorter. That is an excellent tool because not only does it give you that level of self-awareness, but it also gives you a different way of thinking about yourself. So that's a good tool to use. I'm going to show you another one that you can find on CCBC's Career Services website to help you also to figure out your skills, strengths, and abilities. And I'm going to get to that now. On CCBC's website, under college resources is Career Services, so you can get to it from the main ccbc.edu, and then click on college resources, click on Career Services, and then you can click on My Next Move online tool. And this is the ONET Interest Profiler. ONET is a wonderful website that I use all the time, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But for right now, this is the link that you can go to get to the Interest Profiler. This is what My Next Move looks like when you click on that link. And what this does, you just click Start down here, and it starts to measure your interests, your abilities, your skills, and your values. And then it gives you a result report, and then it gives you some jobs, some kinds of careers that you might want to explore. And then once you get to that point in the results section, then you can do some more research on those specific careers. It'll link you up to salary information, job growth information, nature of the job, knowledge, skills you need to know, and even some of the equipment or the hands-on stuff that you're going to need to know to do a particular job. So this is the ONET Interest Profiler. It is not a personality test, so this measures your skills, abilities, values, and interests. And it's free, and like I said, you can get to it off of CCBC's website. Okay, to fall in line with some of the self-awareness stuff, you want to be able to know, again, what your strengths and weaknesses are. So we already talked about where you might fall on the spectrum of strengths and weaknesses when it comes to workplace skills. Then you want to be able to identify your skills, abilities, values, and interests. And now here are some just common questions that you can ask yourself to help you identify your strengths and weaknesses. And I'm going to kind of throw in some real life examples here to help you think about this. Because again, these seem pretty pretty basic and pretty much common sense, but they're not always what they seem. So ask yourself, can you follow directions? So when you are handed a test in class, do you read the directions, or do you just skip over the directions and start answering questions right away? If you are asking for directions, like how to get somewhere, or I know everybody has GPS now, but if God forbid you needed to ask somebody for directions to get to a certain town, do you need to write that down? Or can you listen to the person telling you directions and be able to remember that as you walk away? Or are you the person who asks the person for directions, that person tells you, and you say, okay, thank you, and you turn around and walk away, and you completely forget what they just told you? So where are you in that spectrum? If you are the type of person that needs to write stuff down, by all means, carry a notebook around with you and write things down. A workplace example of this could be, if you're coming back from getting a cup of coffee in the workplace and you run into your boss, and your boss says, oh, hey, I meant to tell you, I need you to have that report to me, by Thursday. Are you going to forget that your boss just told you that, or do you need to write it down? Or do you have questions that you're going to ask your boss right then and there? And if he or she is answering questions to you and you don't have a way to write them down, are you going to remember that information later? If you can remember that information, great. If you can't, then you want to know that about yourself. So if you know that you need to write it down, or you know that you're the type of person that needs to write down directions and you're stuck in that type of situation and you don't have a way to write it down, then you need to be able to make accommodations for that and say, okay, I need to get you that report by Thursday, but can I call you when I get back to the office and ask you a couple questions so I can write down, your answers to them? No problem. Normally, that would not be a problem. So know where you're at with that. Simple stuff here. Do you have computer and typing skills? That is a must-have. I have worked with people who have come into my office needing help with a resume or needing help applying to jobs online, and they really struggle with the typing and navigating through an online application. So where are you on that spectrum? If your typing's kind of rusty, or if you don't have very good computer skills, are those types of skills that are going to be involved in the type of job you want? If the job you want is going to require a lot of computer work and a lot of typing, then you're going to want to make sure that you get those skills built up before you start applying to jobs. This is something that a lot of people, I think, take for granted. They think that, oh, I want a computer all day, every day. Yeah, but can you type a professional letter? Do you know the type of technology that you're going to have to use on the job? So this is just food for thought with this type of stuff as well. Are you open to new ideas or new tasks that you may not know much about? Or are you the type of person where when you're faced with a new task, something you've never experienced, do you suffer from a lot of anxiety with that? If you're the type of person who does feel a lot of anxiety when you are faced with a task that you have never done before, then you need to know that about yourself. It's okay to feel that anxiety, but can you push through it and still attempt to learn something new and still attempt to get the job done, even though it might be a little bit rough at first, and you might have to ask a lot of questions, and you might have to learn something totally new that you never expected you would have to learn. And do you approach that type of thing with a positive attitude, or do you kind of approach it with a negative attitude and say, well, I've never done that, I'm not doing that, I don't want to do that? No, because you're really not going to be able to say no if you're in a workplace situation where your boss is telling you have to learn this. We have this entirely new computer system that we are switching to, and you're going to have to learn this. Do you go into that situation grumbling and complaining, or do you go into it thinking, well, this is a new change, it might be a little bit difficult, but I'm going to do the best I can because this is something that I don't have a choice in? And another example of that is how you act when things aren't going well. If you plan a project, or if you're working on something and it just isn't going the way you wanted it to go, do you completely scrap the entire project? Do you say, oh, forget this, I'm going to start all over, or I can't believe this is happening, everything's falling apart, oh, what am I going to do? Where do you keep a positive attitude? Where does your mind go when you are faced with negative situations, or when you're faced with the unexpected, or when you're faced with something new that you don't have any control over? So you want to know where you're at with that, and to kind of be able to view some of these things I'm talking about with a positive attitude, and like I said before, to kind of go with the flow. Do you accept responsibility for mistakes you make and know how to improve your skills? Are you the type of person when, let's say, you are writing a paper for your English composition class, and you want to take it to a tutor, and you take it to the tutor, and one of our tutors just completely marks it up and says, you know what, you need to have a new thesis statement, this paragraph's all wrong, this paragraph needs to be moved here, and they just mark up your paper and basically tell you to start over. How do you react to that? Do you tell yourself, oh my gosh, that tutor just hacked up my paper, they don't know what they're talking about, I'm not changing anything, I'm not doing this, I'm never going to that tutor again? Or do you say, well, that's a professional tutor, they're kind of more of an expert at this than I am, I think maybe I'm going to spend some time and make some of the changes they made and take it back to them and see what feedback they have after I make these changes? Do you think of it that way? Or do you take it personally, and think, I am the world's worst writer, I just can't do this, I'm not going to do well in this class because that tutor just marked up my paper? So where are you at with that? If you take responsibility for your mistakes and learn from them, then that's fantastic. You are going to be somebody that an employer will want to hire. But if you don't take responsibility for your mistakes and you start to blame other people, that is going to become a problem for you in the workplace. If, you're working on a team and something negative happens and it just falls to pieces, and instead of looking at what you could have done better, if you automatically, right off the bat, start looking at what other people should have done, then that is something you're going to need to change about the way you think and about your behavior. Because you will be asked questions in the interview about how you react to making mistakes, and if you are the type of person who learns from your mistakes, or if you're the type of person who makes a lot of mistakes over and over and over again and constantly blames other people for them. So that's food for thought with that one as well. Do you think carefully about what you want to say before you say it? Are you the type of person who does not have a filter? Do you think before you speak? These types of things. You want to make sure that you think before you speak. If you know that you don't have a filter and you just have that type of personality where when you think something, it's out of your mouth before you even realize you were done thinking about it, you need to be able to make accommodations for that as well, because you never want to say anything that is unprofessional or that might offend somebody or that might make somebody feel hurt or upset or anything. You want to make sure that you still carry yourself in a very professional and polite way. And plus, you might find yourself having to train other people. You might find yourself having to run important meetings or give presentations or teach. Do you organize your thoughts before they come out of your mouth? And especially if you're doing the type of job where that is a necessity, you want to make sure that you know how to do that. And do you give your complete attention to somebody else when they are speaking? This is key as well, because this is something that a lot of people don't know that they're doing when they're doing it. I'm sure a lot of teachers have witnessed this. When somebody is speaking, do you give them the respect that they deserve by paying attention? Or, is your mind constantly wandering? Are you playing with your phone? Are you, God forbid, falling asleep? So where are you with that? If everybody's mind wanders, and that's of course human, but do you know that your mind might wander? And there are little tricks that you can use and learn about that can help you to pay attention when somebody is speaking. You can take notes. You can make eye contact. You can keep telling yourself what this person is saying is important, and I might be responsible for knowing this information later. So you want to make sure that you also carry yourself with that level of professionalism and with that respect that other people deserve when they are speaking, because you would want that level of respect and professionalism if you were the one speaking. Okay, I'm going to give you guys some statistics and some things that were based in research. This is just a little tidbit from a research study done in 1998 that researchers have found that a positive attitude and reliability are the two qualities that employers identify as most important when hiring someone for entry-level work. So that can be, the two qualities that employers want even above perhaps level of education and experience. They want somebody who is reliable and positive. So that kind of supports some of the things that we've already talked about. A national survey was conducted in 2010. It was conducted for the Association of American Colleges and Universities, and they asked 302 executives of companies with more than 25 employees what they believe were important learning outcomes or goals for student graduates. What they found is that 25% of these employers felt that colleges and universities are doing a good job preparing graduates for the workplace. So that's a great thing. And this kind of talks about what these employers are looking for. 90% want their employees to take on more responsibilities and use broader skills than in the past. 84% believe that it would be helpful to require students to complete some type of senior project. And 81% see importance in students' research skills and ability to analyze evidence. So this just kind of talks about what employees want you to be learning in school, and so that's why you might be asked in almost every class to do some type of project and to do very good research to support your thoughts and your way you write in some research papers, and they want to see good evidence to support the way you think and write. 89% of these employers who responded to the survey look for the ability to communicate effectively, orally and in writing. 81% would like to see increased focus on critical thinking and analytical reasoning skills. 79% endorse increased emphasis on real-world experience through internships or other external experiences. 75% of employers emphasize ethical decisions and their connections to choices and actions. So these are just some numbers that kind of support what I already talked about. You know, in this big survey, you already see that they want you to have those communication skills. They want you to have the critical thinking and analytical skills. They want you to have a real life experience. You know, and internships is something that is just a marvelous way to get on the job experience while you're still in school. I get a lot of questions sometimes from people that I work with who ask me, you know, how am I going to get job I'm looking at that I want to apply to is asking for more experience than I have. An internship fills that gap. An internship gets you that experience while you're still in school. An employer sees that you've had an internship, that shows them that you are eager to learn, that you're willing to put yourself out there and learn those skills by completing an internship, whether it's for credit or whether you do it during the summer or whatever. You know, an internship is a very, very, very great way to show an employer that you really want to learn and do well in the field that you've chosen. 71% of these employers see the need for teamwork skills and the ability to collaborate with diverse groups. So here's that interpersonal skill stuff that I talked about. 70% recognize innovation and creativity. There's the open-mindedness and the ability to face new situations and new tasks with a positive attitude. 63% see the need for the ability to work with numbers and understand statistics. This is why you might have noticed in a lot of the programs we have now, you need math. You need college algebra. You might need statistics. You might need pre-calc. This is something that is becoming very, very important to employers, that you understand numbers. 52% of employers would like to see more emphasis on civic knowledge, civic participation, and community engagement. This is where community service comes into play. You know, even if you find a way to do some volunteer work for an hour to a month, you know, all of us are extremely busy with work and school, with family and everything, but if you can find a couple hours to spend doing some type of community service, then that is such a resume booster, and it is something that employers love to see. And I can help you find some community service work. You know, there's a lot of people on campus that can help you find a place to go to volunteer, so keep that in mind as well. Okay, I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about some resources that are available to you from CCBC's website. It's www.ccbc.edu/career services, and a lot of the information on there is about finding a job search websites and resources, networking, resumes, cover letters, all of that good stuff that you need to be able to do your job search. One of the first things that people need to be thinking about when they are looking for a job is what kind of job are you going to be able to get with the degree that you have or the degree that you are seeking. This website is excellent. It's called What Can I Do With This Major? It helps kind of fill in that gap of information between the type of major that you're working towards or the type of degree that you have and what kind of job you can get with that degree. And this is kind of how you get to it. You go to CCBC's website, you click on College Resources, then click on Career Services, and then you click on What Can I Do With This Major? You have to get to this through CCBC's website. If you Google What Can I Do With This Major, it's going to take you to the wrong site. So you get to this link from CCBC's website, and you click on the link at the bottom, whatcanidowiththismajor.com. And this is what it looks like when you click on that link, and it has a list of majors in a block format. So let's say that you are at CCBC and your major is biological sciences. You can click on that link that says biological sciences, and you can find out a ton of information about what kind of work you're going to be able to do with that degree and with that major. So this is what it looks like when you click on the name of a major. This is an example of what you will find if you click on marketing. And it's split up into 3 different columns. So the first column is the area. So that's basically the category of the type of work that you could do. So with a degree in marketing, you could do sales and promotion. The second column is the employer, and that's who's going to hire you. And then the third column is some information and strategies that you can look at and read and know that those are some good ways and good things to do to be able to get a job in that field. And under each major, there's a lot of different areas. There's a lot of different employers, and there's a lot of different information strategies. And that's something that I think people don't always know, is the numerous types of areas in which you can work with a specific major. You are not pigeonholed into working in just one area. There's a lot of different areas for a lot of different majors. Another great website that I love that you can get to through Career Services website is called Candid Career. And this is another one that you have to get to through CCBC's website. If you Google Candid Career, it's not going to give you this exact website. So you go to ccbc.edu, college resources, then you click on Career Services, then you click on video resources. And you have to go down to where this blue box is, and it says browse thousands of career interview clips. This is what Candid Career looks like when you click on that blue box. And what this is literally a collection of informational interviews that people have done with professionals in a wide range of fields. And I love this website because when I would teach the College Success Strategies course, I would make my students do an informational interview with a professional that was already working in the field that they wanted to know more about, or the field that they had picked as their potential career. And so part of the assignment was to find a professional that they did not know, contact them through a phone call or through email, and ask them to sit down and answer some questions. And what ended up happening was a lot of my students would ask me, oh, Miss Erica, my aunt is a nurse, can I just talk to her? Or my boyfriend's father is an accountant, can I just talk to him? And my answer to that was always no, because there is something very powerful with being faced with contacting somebody that you do not know to ask them questions. It's getting yourself out of your own comfort zone. It's getting yourself out of a typical scenario where you would ask questions about somebody's job. So this is what Candid Career has done for you. They've done the work for you. So you can see when you click on this on your own time that over on the right hand side of the page on Candid Career, there's a lot of links to a lot of different job titles. And when you click on a link, there's a video, and they're pretty standard, but they vary depending on what field they work in and what they talk about. But they'll talk about what their interview was like. They'll talk about their day-to-day activities. They'll talk about the strengths that you need to have in order to be successful in that career. They'll talk about the pros and cons of that career. They'll talk about their background, what level of education they've had. So this is just very, very great information straight from the horse's mouth, if you will, straight from the professional who is working in that field that you want to get into. So it's kind of giving you that hidden information about certain jobs and certain workplaces. It's giving you a lot of really good and really valuable tips and strategies to be successful in that career, and also gives you a window into what the daily job is like. So I really, really encourage you to check out Candid Career. When I have some downtime, I get on here and I pick a random video and I watch it because I learn something about it every time. And there's one thing that you also want to pay attention to that I found especially interesting about Candid Career is the language that people use. One of the things that is important in resume writing and doing in interviewing is knowing the types of language that is typical in a specific field. So you'll see a lot of different professionals talking in a different way, using different vocabulary. vocabulary words. The way somebody who is in the business field talks about their job is going to be very, very different from the way a person in the medical field talks about their job. So that's something that is important for you to know, to kind of get exposed to the types of language used in the specific career that you are trying to get into. Here's another shot for you about what it looks like when you click on a specific video. So you'll see this is a video about an operating room registered nurse. So you'll see the career profile on the right, and those are links over there as well, where the person will talk about their job description, the loves and challenges, how to prepare, their story about their interview, and some final advice. And then it always gives you related videos as well underneath. So if you want to watch more videos about nursing, then they're always listed there at the bottom. Okay, I want to talk about ONET with you guys. I mentioned this website earlier. So it's just www.onetonline.org. And this is a way to find out about specific occupations and using specific job titles. So you can just type in any job title that you know of into the occupation quick search in the upper right hand corner, and you can just find out a ton of information about that particular job. I feel like now, it's extremely important for people to know what the job growth information is about the job that they are looking into and about the career that they are looking into, because we no longer have, the luxury of finding a job in a field where there aren't any jobs. We have to make sure that when we are choosing our career, that there are jobs in that field, and jobs in that field in the area in which we want to live. So ONET is a really great website to find out that information. Okay, so you type in an occupation title or a job title and you'll get a report. And this is not the first thing that comes up, what you see right here, but it's just a snapshot of a little bit of the large amount of information that you'll get. So you'll get things like the details of the day-to-day tasks that you'll have to do, the knowledge that you have to know, which is basically some of the coursework that you'll do in the training for a particular field or job. But it gives you this job zone information and the education information too. So if you're curious to know if an accountant is a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree, this website will tell you. It also will tell you the percentage of people who are in the field and what level of education they have. So this one will tell you that 79% of the people that they surveyed in this particular field have a bachelor's degree. It'll tell you 5% had an associate's degree and 5% had a master's degree. So this is really, really important when you're doing your career planning and when you're doing your career research, because you'll need to know if you need a degree past an associate degree or a bachelor's or a master's. So I really suggest when I'm working with people to spend at least 1 hour a week doing some research on your particular career, because a lot of people don't do that, and then when it comes time for them to do their job search, they feel lost and overwhelmed, and that's what usually will delay them getting their first job in their career. So utilize ONET, utilize Candid Career, utilize what can I do with this major. Instead of spending that hour, playing around on the internet, go and do some job research, some career-related research. It's only going to benefit you. And do it in small chunks so you don't feel overwhelmed. But there's just tons of information out there that is just going to be so helpful for you now and later when you're doing your job search. Another thing that ONET will tell you is the state and national trends. There's a drop-down menu that you can't see on this screenshot, but you can pick any state. This is important if you are planning on staying in Pennsylvania or if you want to move out of state, because the trends can change with, depending on where you live, obviously. So this will tell you the percent change in growth in any job. So it will also highlight, give you a little notification if a job is going to be in demand, or if a job that isn't really growing or getting any larger as far as number of open positions in that particular state. So this is important to know. It's the data source is the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so it's the most up-to-date and accurate labor information out there. the Career Services website. So you can see on the left there, there is the link to our online job board, which is a list of jobs that we post from local employers that contact me every week to ask us to advertise open positions in the area for them. There's also a link on there for career and resume help. There's the link to my next move that I talked about. There's a link to the career fair that we hold every year in April. There's information there for non-traditional careers. There's a little bit of information there on the Perkins Grant. And then there's the link to what can I do with this major that I talked about, and then the link to the video resources or Candid Career. You can also email us through the career.services@ccbc.edu, and then you can see where my contact information is there, and then below that is Ann Farrell's information. She is our part-time job search specialist here at CCBC. So that just gives you a little screenshot of our website there. Okay, going to switch gears here again and talk about networking briefly. I do have a whole separate longer presentation on networking, so I'm just going to briefly cover this here. If you want more information on how to set up your own network of people, of professionals to help you in your job search and in your career path, then please by all means contact me. We can set up an appointment to talk about this further. So the networking basics that I like to talk about is basically, put yourself out there. Get over any insecurities or any shyness that you might have, and start to contact professionals. You can get on LinkedIn and set up a profile and start to follow groups of professionals that way. You can get involved, try to connect with faculty, staff, counselors, old high school teachers, coaches, pastors, friends of your parents or guardians, friends of your family. These are all potential people that can be invited into your network so that you can let them know what your career goals are, let them know what you're trying to do, let them know you're in school, talk about your classes, talk about what you hope to learn in school and what type of job you hope to get someday with your degree or your training. You want to be able to know how to describe your goals to others. This is why in this class and perhaps in other classes you are taught how to set up some goals, some obtainable goals that you can start to achieve while you're in school and when you're out of school. You want to make sure that you have kind of like a little pitch about yourself. They call it an elevator speech, where you briefly describe to somebody what you're planning on doing. You can say something like, well, I'm at CCBC right now, I'm going part-time, I'm taking some networking classes because I really want to get into the computer field and start to learn how to use computers. And I hope that someday I'll be able to work for a company and providing IT support. So you want to kind of have those goals outlined in your brain or on paper or however it works for you, so that when you do meet somebody and they ask you, well, what are you doing in school? You have a way to describe to them your goals and your plans, and they can maybe say, oh, well, I know a lot of people in that field that I can hook you up with if you ever have questions, or if you want to connect with some type of mentor. That's how networking begins, is being able to talk to somebody about your goals and to get some contact information of some professionals in the field that you're interested in. One thing to keep in mind when you are networking and talking to professionals is that you don't expect help. Don't expect help from people just because you meet somebody and they are working in the field that you want to break into. You cannot expect that they are going to give away all the secrets and they are going to help you get an interview and help you find a job, but they might, and that's where you want to ask them, blatantly ask them, I'm trying to do some networking with some professionals, would you mind if I got your contact information and kept in touch with you, because I would love to pick your brain, I would love to ask you some questions if you're willing. That's kind of how you ask those questions and open up yourself to people so that perhaps they could be a part of your network. You want to always keep in mind that you are ultimately responsible for your future. So putting yourself out there and starting this networking process is very, very valuable. It can be uncomfortable for a lot of people, but in the end, it is so valuable to start doing this. You want to get to know people, be professional and genuine, be honest. Don't expect that just because you ask a favor, you will get it. Don't expect that if you ask somebody to write you a letter of recommendation that they're going to be comfortable doing it. The more you keep in touch with people, the more willing that they would write you a letter of recommendation. That's why, with some of your faculty members or the staff around CCBC and even us as counselors, if you want us to write you a letter of recommendation, then we're going to have to get to know you a little bit. And that can mean setting up a meeting with us to talk about your goals and talk about your strengths and talk about where you see where you see yourself going in your career and where you want to be in 5 years or 10 years. So this is just food for thought with how to network. Because the people in your network, we will try to help you if we have the ability and if we have the interest in your future, and if we have opportunities available to us, we will pass them along to you. But that takes a connection. It takes almost a relationship, a professional one, of course, but a relationship where we know a little bit about you and about where you're headed and what your passion is. So that's something that you want to be able to communicate to people, and you need to kind of cultivate that relationship with anybody that you invite into your professional network. Okay, one thing I like to talk about is your internet presence. These are some statistics I found that can give you a good perspective on how you can use social networks and how employers are using social networks in the job field. In 2011, 89% of companies use social networks for recruiting, and 14.4 million people use social media to find their last job. So don't overlook the power of social media when you're doing your job search. It can be as simple as updating your status when you graduate and saying, oh, I just graduated with my associates in accounting. Does anybody know any open positions anywhere? You want to let people know that you're looking for a job. You never know who will contact you through social media, when an open position pops up. 79% of recruiters reviewed applicants' information online, so they might Google your name. And that is one thing that you should always do to see what is out there on the internet about you, and even to find out if somebody else has your very same name, and if an employer Googles your name, what will they find? And that's a good way to kind of get in the right mindset to potentially clean up your internet presence. 86% of employers said that people should make their internet profiles more employer friendly. And that might mean removing some of your pictures or setting your privacy settings so that they don't really see much when they search for you. So how do you have your privacy settings set up? And do you have information on there that you do not want your employer to know about you? So this is all very important stuff to think about, and to think about how you want to project yourself. You don't want to necessarily not have an internet profile up or an internet presence at all. You don't need to delete everything, but you want to make sure that what people are finding when they search for you is something that you want them to find and that you're okay with them knowing about you. And this data was found by careerenlightenment.com, which is a really great website to check out too. Switching gears yet again to resumes. I also have a much longer presentation about resumes, so I'm going to give you the basics right here. And just know that if you don't have a resume at all, I can help you build one from scratch. If you have an existing resume and you would like me to just take a look at it and critique it and give you some tips on how to improve it, then you can always email me that resume and I can take a look at it, because everybody needs a resume. And sometimes, especially if you don't have one, it can be overwhelming to start to think about this and to start to create your own resume. But the reason why you and everybody else needs a resume is that it tells the employer what you have done in the past and what you can do for the company now. A resume provides an advanced contact with the employer to generate interest in you so that the employer will want to interview you. It is something that it is used to show an employer, like, hey, here's a snapshot of me. Please call me and have me come in so we can talk about what else I can do for you as an employee. It is the tool that you will use to sell yourself, but you want to make sure that this document is an honest and straightforward representation of your skill set. And if you have an existing resume that you've used in the past, just know that whenever you are graduating or whenever you've got the training that you're seeking now, you're going to want to change and update your resume. It might be totally different than what your resume looks like now. There are tons and tons and tons of internet resources for how to write resumes. There are templates that you can use out there through Microsoft Word, and templates that you can use to create a resume that you can download off of many different websites. I usually joke about resumes and say that if you give your resume to 10 different people, you're going to get 10 different opinions on how to improve that resume or what is good or bad about that resume. There are just so many ways to write a resume, but the main things that you want to keep in mind is that you want your resume to be readable, and you want it to be an honest representation of you, and you just want it to be error-free. So these things I'm going to talk about briefly right now, they are my main issues with bad resumes. I have opinions on this based on how I was trained and based on the years of doing resumes that I have done. I've done a lot of resumes. So these are some things that I usually will highlight in somebody's resume if I see them, and I will say, you need to change this or take this out, or whatever the case may be. If your resume has a lot of errors, forget it. Your resume will go in the garbage, unfortunately. You don't want to have dull, repetitive statements. You don't want to say the same thing over and over again. You don't want to use the same action verbs over and over and over again. Because if you think about it, somebody who is reviewing resumes might look at multiple resumes every single day. So you want to make sure that your resume stands out, but the way you want it to stand out is by representing your skills. If the resume has a lot of blank space or it doesn't fit the page, that is a classic resume no-no. You don't want it to be so short that it doesn't have hardly any information in it at all. So you want to make sure that it is filling the page and it has relevant and pertinent information on it. You don't want to use a lot of different font changes. You don't want to use a lot of italics, underlining, and bolding. You don't want it to be distracting to the eye. If you are using bold or italics, that's fine, but you don't want to overuse it. You want to make sure that you are bolding the things that you want to stand out, but don't overuse that, like I said. You do not want to use color unless you are a fine arts major or a graphic designer or an artist. You do not want to use color to make your resume stand out. You want to use your skills and describe your skills. That will help you to stand out in and of itself. You don't need to do anything fancy to your resume so that it grabs the eye. Like I said, these are my issues with resumes, but it's something to think about. You don't want to use I, me, or my in your resume. It's just a rule that is out there that you just do not want to do. You don't want to have too much personal information on your resume. I am kind of old school when it comes to listing personal information and talking about personal information in an interview. You don't want to list hobbies that are completely unrelated to the job. If you have a hobby that is related to the job that you are applying to, then fine, you can put that on there. But you don't want to be too personal when you're writing your resume. Okay, I'm going to talk about the resume sections and tips here. One thing that I want to stress is that before you send your resume out to apply for jobs, you want to make sure that somebody else looks at it. Send it to me to look at. I can tell you what I think, or if I see any room for improvement, or if I see any errors. That is really, really important. Second set of eyes looking at your resume after you've completed it. So I cannot stress that enough. So here are just the basic resume sections. You want to have your heading, of course, at the top. You want to have your name, address, telephone number, and email address. You want to make sure your email address is professional, not personal, so that you do not portray a level of unprofessionalism with your email address alone. You want to try to get it so that it is a combination of your first and last name, if that's possible. After your heading, you want to have a career objective. Sometimes it is an optional section. It used to be very common for a resume to have an objective, but anymore they're pretty redundant because people started using this objective all the time. So they would put something on the top of their resume like seeking gainful employment where I can utilize my skills and abilities. That is a redundant statement and it's assumed because you're submitting a resume, it's quite clear to most employers that you are trying to find a job. So in my opinion, the only time you want to use an objective is if it is extremely specific to the job you are applying to. So an objective is okay, but you don't want to have just a very vague blanketed statement on there. So that's just my opinion there. Summary of qualifications can go after that. That is also optional. The summary of qualifications is good if you do not have a lot of work history yet in the field, or if you are switching careers and you might have some transferable skills that you want an employer to know about. Again, you want to have this section be very specific and not very vague. I see a lot of people saying statements such as good multitasker, ability to work independently and as part of a team. Well, a lot of people say that on a resume, but an employer is going to look at that and say, okay, yeah, everybody says that, but prove it. So you want to make sure that this section is extremely specific, and this is where having some assistance in writing this is very important as well. So I can help you write that. There are a lot of websites out there that talk about the summary of qualifications sections. There's a lot of information out there where you can read about the different types of sections on a resume, but one thing I want to caution you about there is you do not want to copy and paste anything from any website and use it in your resume. A lot of employers will check your resume for plagiarism, so you do not want to copy anything you see on the internet word for word into your resume. The next section is the education section. I prefer to put the education section at the top of the resume as opposed to after your work experience. That's just my preference there. I can say at least for our nursing and allied health majors, I like to put the education first because we are one of the few institutions where you get trained to be a nurse and trained to be a radiology technician, and you get the associate's degree on top of it. So that I think is important. So I like to list education first for almost all of our majors. You want to make sure that you have your degree name spelled out and your year of graduation on there. Then after your education, you want to have your experience or your related experience, and that is simply your work history. You want to put your most recent job first and go back from there. Go back about 10 years, no longer than that. If you don't have a lot of work experience, that's okay, but that's where you would want to try to get some volunteer work under your belt. You could put a section on there called related coursework to kind of fill up the page and show an employer some of the classwork you've done and things like that. So there are ways to fill up a resume when you don't have a whole lot of work experience, and again, that's where I can come in to help, or there's a lot of information online about how to write a resume when you don't have a lot of work experience. After that, you want to put some of your activities or some of your honors. You want to make sure that you keep this to college activities and honors, not high school, unless you are literally right out of high school. Then it's okay to have high school be a part of your resume. But typically, once you've started college and once you've graduated from college, employers don't want to see much about high school on your resume. Then if you have military service, you can put that on there if you want to. That's totally optional, but it's good, especially if your military job is related to the job you're trying to apply to. It's good to have that on there. And then you want to have some references, but your references is going to be on a separate page. Do not include your reference information on your resume automatically. You will see in the job description of any job that you're applying to whether or not you need references. Typically you do. You'll need between 3 and 5 professional references, and you want to have those references again on a separate page with the same heading that you used on your resume, and you want to have that person's name, job title, email address, and phone number. The last topic I'm going to cover is interviewing, and again, I have a ton of information on interviews and how to be successful in an interview. So make sure you utilize the services that my office provides. We mock interview where I will sit you down and answer and ask you specific questions, and you can answer them, and then I go over the answers with you. Because the one thing I cannot stress enough is that the more you practice for an interview, the more confident you will be. So it really helps to combat that level of anxiety that everybody gets when they are faced with doing an interview. So you want to make sure that you study for an interview. And you can study for an interview the same way you might study for a test right now. If you are more of a visual learner, get on YouTube and watch some videos of people answering interview questions. If you are somebody that is a read and write learner, then write down answers to sample interview questions if that helps. Study that. Read a lot of sample interview questions and answers. There's a ton of them online. I have a lot of sample interview questions in my office, so if you ever wanted a list of sample interview questions, just email me and I'll email you a list right back. You also want to remember that you're going to be interviewing them as well. I think when it comes to a lot of people's anxiety comes from the fact that they feel like they have to perform for the people interviewing them. It's similar with fears and anxiety over public speaking. A lot of people think that they have to act a certain way in an interview and say all the right things and make sure that they answer questions perfectly. But you want to keep in mind that that finding a job and doing the interview is to find a good fit for you and for them. So if it's not going to be a good fit, that's okay. And if it's going to be a good fit, then that's great. But you want to make sure that when you're in that room with the people interviewing you, that you're thinking to yourself, do I want to work for these people? And that sometimes will help to alleviate some of that anxiety too, because they are going to try to sell themselves just as much as you are going to try to sell yourself to them. Okay, here's some tips on interview preparation. You want to make sure that you prepare what you're going to wear well in advance. You want to dress professionally and conservatively. There's a ton of information on the internet about what to wear and what not to wear to an interview, so I would definitely do some research about that. I have a tendency, giving advice on this, to be a lot more conservative, so you want to make sure that basically whatever you're wearing, you are comfortable in. I don't feel like people need to go out and spend a ton of money on a brand new outfit, but some people need to do that if they don't have any clothes at home that they could wear to an interview. So whatever you're comfortable with there, but you just want to make sure that whatever you wear, you are comfortable in and it is professionally appropriate. Prepare transportation and backup transportation. This is key. You want to make sure that you let somebody in your life know that you have a interview that day. That way, if you get a flat tire or you miss the bus or something happens and you're stuck in traffic, that you can maybe have somebody come and get you and get you to that interview. Traffic's kind of a risk anyway, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But you cannot really guarantee anymore that if you miss your interview because you missed the bus or you got a flat tire, that you're going to be able to reschedule that interview. Employers are not required to reschedule you an interview if you can't make it there due to something that happened that was beyond your control. You want to know where you are going. If traffic is an issue, if you have to drive into Pittsburgh or a heavily trafficked area, then you need to make sure that you allot enough time to get there. So you want to do a dry run, take a ride to the place where you're going to have your interview, time it, see how long it's going to take you to get there, see where you need to park, see if you need a visitor's pass to enable to park. So you want to have all of these things planned in advance, and that will also kind of alleviate some of your anxiety about getting to the interview on time. So you just want to be aware of these types of things. You want to plan to arrive 15 minutes before the interview. I've had employers tell me this, do not show up a half hour, 45 minutes early and think that you are projecting the idea that you are very, very eager. You don't want to show up that early, because then the people interviewing you might feel rushed. They might need that time to get a cup of coffee or return a phone call or send some emails. You don't want to show up too early, because then they'll be more anxious about getting to you and having you come in and starting the interview early. So just arrive 15 minutes prior to the interview. Certainly do not be late. Never be late. But I think most people hopefully know that. You do not want to dress inappropriately. You don't want to wear aftershave, cologne, or perfume. There's a lot of reasons for these tips right here. It's not my favorite thing to go over, but it always needs to be said. As far as not dressing inappropriately, you don't want what you're wearing to be a distraction to anybody in the room, and you don't want to project to the people interviewing you that you don't know how to dress for an interview. That's where doing some research on the internet about what to wear and what not to wear to an interview is extremely important. And as far as not wearing cologne or perfume or aftershave, you never know how this is going to affect people. You know, somebody in the room might be prone to having major headaches, and so maybe the smell of cologne or perfume is really bothersome to them. Or maybe somebody just doesn't like that scent. So just keep that off of your body that day. Do not wear any aftershave, cologne, or perfume. Also, if you smoke cigarettes, do not smoke that day, because you do not want anybody to smell smoke on you, because it can be a major turnoff. And you want to make sure that you carry what you're needing in some type of briefcase. You don't want to have multiple bags with you. You don't want to have a giant purse plus a briefcase with your resume in it. You just want to leave most of that stuff in your car and have a small case or folder or something that has copies of your resume in it, a notebook, and a pen. And of course you can bring in your phone and your keys, but you want to have that stuff put away. You don't want to have your cell phone out. It is a big no-no. So if you use your cell phone to tell the time, you want to make sure you wear a watch that day. Even if you don't wear a watch every day on a normal basis, you want to make sure you wear a watch that day for the interview. You don't want to bring in your own drink or chew gum or have anything in your mouth. You don't want to bring your iPod with you or anything like that. Just don't bring that stuff. As far as grooming goes, you want to make sure that however you wear your hair, or if you have facial hair, however that is that it's neat and it's kind of not going to be bothering you. You don't want to touch your face a lot. You don't want to push your hair out of your eyes a lot. It's just distracting to the people in the room. So there's a lot of opinions on this too. You'll find a lot of different opinions about this when you do some research online. But I feel like my opinion is just make sure that however you wear your hair and however your facial hair is, just make sure that you're not going to be playing with it a lot. You're not going to be touching your hair a lot. Okay, anymore. A lot of people who conduct interviews use behavioral-based interview questions. I have a list of these in my office. I'd be more than happy to send them to you if you email me and want to take a look at them. Behavioral-based interview questions, I think, came about because when somebody is conducting an interview, they want to see proof. So somebody will put on their resume that they have the ability to multitask. Well, an employer is going to want to know what that looks like, and they're going to want to hear the proof from you that you are a good multitasker. So the way they'll do this is they'll ask you a question that is trying to get you to describe a scenario to them. They'll say things like, tell me about a time when you disagreed with your boss, what happened? Or tell me a time when you had to deal with an irate customer, what happened? Or they'll say, tell me about how you plan to get multiple projects done on a deadline. Or they'll say, how do you keep yourself organized and on task? So those are all questions that are very, very popular in an interview. And the way that you can prepare yourself to answer any behavioral-based interview question is by using the STAR method. And this method came from www.rightattitudes.com. And basically, it's describing your answer to these questions in a specific way. And you want to start by talking about the situation that you were faced with. Then you want to talk about the task that you were in charge of doing. Then you want to talk about your action, which is what you did. And then you want to talk about the result, which is basically what happened. So an example of this, perhaps with the disagreeing with your boss question. You can say, well, I was put on a team of 5 people by my boss, and our job was to think about how to recreate our website for our company. So there was 5 of us. I was the leader of the team, and we had to come up with 5 new ideas on how to change our website. And then you go on and talk about the way that you delegated the jobs among the group, and maybe you disagreed with how many people your boss wanted you to have on that team, or maybe you disagreed with only having 5 ideas. Whatever the case is, you want to make sure that you answer this question honestly, and all of these behavioral-based questions honestly. And then you talk about the result, whether the result was either good or bad, whether it was a total disaster or it was the most amazing thing you've ever done. That's fine. You want to make sure that you are honest in your answer. If the outcome of what you're talking about was negative, or if it didn't go the way you wanted it to, then you want to make sure, again, that you answer that honestly, but you also talk about what you learned. You will be sometimes asked, tell me about a situation where a project did not go well. What happened? And in that instance, you can't really say, well, that never happened to me. Because it pretty much happened to everybody. So you want to make sure that you answer these questions, even if the outcome was negative. If by chance you're asked a behavioral-based interview question that really did not happen to you, for instance, if you really never had a disagreement with your boss, then it's okay to say, you know what, that never happened to me, but can I tell you what I would have done if that had happened to me? And that's how you would answer that. You never want to say, oh, it never happened to me, let's move on. So you want to make sure that you answer these questions completely and that you follow this method, the STAR. It's almost like telling a story, but you also don't want to be too lengthy in your answer. So that's why practicing is very, very important when it comes to answering these behavioral-based interview questions. Okay, last thing, I just want to show you some resources that I use in my office and that you can use as well to get some more information on a lot of this stuff that I talked about. So, for instance, this is College Central Networks on here, Career Overview Online, True Careers Online, all really great websites. There's just a ton of information out there. What can I do with this major? We talked about Career Builder is a great site that you can use for career resources and advice and guidance. And last but not least, here is my contact information. My number is 724-480-3413. My email address is erica.fox@ccbc.edu. So you can contact me anytime with feedback or questions that you have for me. And thank you very much for your attention. Bye-bye.